First question. I've seen a ton of your debates lately. I thought you handled yourself quite well, for instance, in the Milo debate, where he started off with it was wild. I felt triggered on your behalf when he just came at your wife extremely hard out of the gate. Obviously a calculated thing. I know what I saw. Have you seen the videos that I've made in the past at all? The Charisma on Command videos?
I watched a couple when I was going to your first podcast a long time ago, but yeah.
So the general idea is, I mean, I look in a very analytical way at social situations and see if I can figure out the rules that underlie them. It's a bit of an Asperger-y approach to it, but it was what I had to do when I was in high school trying to like piece together what the hell I was not understanding about how to get girls to like me. And I started to do that watching you. I'm curious if you're aware of the approaches that you take into these debates, how you handle insults and that sort of thing.
Yeah, super analytical and very deliberate. There's a huge, every time a topic like this comes, like 15 things pop in my mind.
Yeah, so let's like break it out. So first off, I think there's a difference between debates to persuade an audience and debates to change someone's mind. So
absolutely,
I imagine when you walk into that with Milo, you're like, I'm not trying to change Milo's mind.
Typically, usually, like something I've been really big on lately is matching energy. So I try to be very reactive to the person that I'm dealing with. I try to be very reactive, and that's probably true in social situations too. I'll come in, I've got like a certain style that I prefer, but like I'll listen to you and I'll go with your energy, and then I'll try to like follow and maybe like lead by my following, even depending on how that person wants to interact. So if you watch that Milo debate, I opened up very respectful, very kind, very courteous, despite the fact that he was so busy doing fucking blow in the bathroom and being a diva. He was like an hour and a half late. For a bunch of like college kids. So he like charged like thousands of dollars to come out and do this fucking debate for. And I'm like, bro, like I'm bigger than you now. I didn't charge these kids anything. I'm here on time. Like how fucking rude to like do this to these guys. But yeah, I waited. I was respectful. But then as soon as he started opening up with the personal attacks, then obviously it affords me a bit of room to be a little bit nasty as well. And if somebody wants to get really dirty, I'll roll in the mud if you want to, depending. So yeah. So once somebody, it's kind of like, have you ever seen the YouTube channel Every Frame of Painting?
Yeah.
Have you seen the episode on Jackie Chan?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched almost all their videos. So
okay, I have too.
Yeah.
There's a part in the Jackie Chan one that he points out that's very good, and it's very satisfying from a heroic perspective. That when you're watching heroes fight villains, the hero almost always starts off from behind and has to catch up, and that makes the victory, one, it gives them the moral authority to fight, because the other person is like more powerful. Usually they're up to no good. And two, it gives you a very satisfying end. And I've noticed that when I engage with certain people, if I come out of the gate really hard, I can be very overwhelming, very overbearing. I can destroy somebody. If you want to see that person get destroyed, it's cool. Yeah. But it just kind of looks a little like, ugh. But if I wait for the other person to lead, be a little bit nasty to me, then I can start to like ramp up my stuff. But the other person always looks more unhinged than me because I'm always being responsive to them rather than coming over the top and be like, this is Milo. He's a piece of shit. Let's go. Which would afford him the opportunity to come at me. And then I would look like the one that was instigating everything. So I'm very deliberate when I think about all these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny you use the word reactivity because I see it in a different way. I was seeing non-reactivity, which is he insulted your wife. You didn't answer that. You just continued with whatever your statement was. And I thought, I've seen you in a handful of podcasts. You've got a number of ways that you handle insults, but one of them is I see you saying, yes, I will match their energy and maybe return an insult, but I'm not going to fight or deny or struggle against the shitty bucket that you've put me in. Because I think, at that point now you're debating whether or not, I don't know, just somewhere you don't want to be in the conversation.
I usually bring something to an equal level. Like I think with Milo, what did I start digging on? Oh, fuck.
You went with the cancellation and the...
Something like that.
You eventually hit him with the cocaine in the bathroom.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I started to, There was something that I said, and the pedophile stuff, and then he was like, what did you say? And I was like, yeah, I said this. What do you want to say about it? And then he just like stared at me for 20 seconds and then continued on,
Another common thing that I saw, you just had the Whatever podcast with about abortion, and in that, it echoed something I saw in the Milo, which was this, how dare you statement came up in both of them. How dare you?
Yeah.
And it seemed in both of them super disingenuous. And I'm just curious if you've sensed that in the moment, and you seem to just steam right through it.
I'll just laugh at it. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and like play games around some moral grandstanding. Like if I've actually mortally wounded or offended your psyche on some shit, like it needs to be some like really deep stuff. Like if I'm like making fun of a dead parent or like some tragedy, then I could
yeah.
understand that. But the like, how dare you do this politically? It's like the oldest trick in the book. And I'm like, we're not politicians here running for city council or something. Like, this isn't going to do anything in this conversation with me.
It's crazy, but there is that, I don't suspect that the women that you were speaking with thought about this in advance, but there was a performative aspect. So people seem to intuit that when you're in a debate, you are performing. And one of the ways that you can win this performance is by assuming the role of victim incredibly powerfully. So like setting someone up to have hurt you in a way that is too grievous for you to continue. And I've seen even people that I respect, like Christopher Hitchens used to do this when he would talk about Christianity. How dare you say the blah, 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 and talk about all the evils at the feet of Christianity. And it is when the audience is
Stephen
stunned.
Fry did that same thing when somebody asked him, like, what would you say to God when you get to heaven? He's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Child cancer? Yeah, I remember.
It's powerful, you know, and the demonstration of moral indignancy is an incredibly powerful thing, even though it shouldn't be a strong logical thing. So I'm curious how you think about debates, because clearly, well, maybe you don't think this, what wins a debate is not necessarily the best argument or the most sound logical approach to it. There is a bit of performance art that's going on. Is that something that you think about?
I wouldn't say that it's so much a performance art. I would say that there are multiple layers to a debate, and you don't only have to manage the logical discourse back and forth. You also have to manage the meta expectations of what's going on in the conversation as well. So I realized like about 20 or 30 minutes into that debate that this logically, I felt like I had the upper hand, because typically when people start engaging in like a lot of crazy argumentation, it's because they know they can't come back to you logically. So I knew logically I had the upper hand. So then the rest of the time I'm like writing this, I'm trying to figure out like, how do I manage this on a meta level? Because this is going to be like a shit show otherwise. So I'm trying to think like, do I need to go really hard on the insults? Should I start screaming at them and cut them off? Should I just be quiet and let them continue to interrupt me so I look good for the camera? Should I appeal to the moderator? Like I'm trying to think of like all these things as they're like shouting at me to figure out like
what did you come to? What was the sort of conclusion that you found?
At some point, there were a few points that I wanted to finish. So I'm like, I need to, if they're going to keep cutting me off, I'll let them cut me off for a while. But at some point, I need to say, like, I'm going to finish this. Let me finish this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to finish this. I did that a few times. When the one lady was like, I'm going to treat you like a child. I'm like, okay, I'll be a child then. I'm taking my seat. Like, kind of like be a little bit memey, fun with it or whatever.
Well, you yes-ended several of the insults, which I thought was...
Yeah, anytime somebody pulls out like, you're misogynistic, I'm like, yeah, I am.
And it's getting worse by the moment. You added to it, and it diffused it so quickly in that.
Yeah, before the cameras were rolling, I admit I'm a little edgy. I was being a little edgy too. But like one of the women across the table from me, I didn't know she was trying to set up something for the debate. She was like, I heard you defend the N-word in private. And I was like, oh, no, I defend it in public too. And she was like, why would you ever say that? And I'm like, well, sometimes black people just really piss me off. And then she didn't have anything else to say. And it was like, we just rolled into it. And like, I could tell both of them were like a little bit irked by the answer. Like, oh, I don't know. What do you want? Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, we're not doing this right now.
But behind that is the sense that this is not a good faith engagement. So I'm not going to give you my actual justifications and reasons for some of these things. I'm going to play into the worst stereotype that you are implying that I fall into to kind of prove to you that you don't even care. You're just looking for some sort of moral victory. Or
a little bit. It's also like choosing, like it's like choosing your battle arena. You like if somebody is trying to pull you into a certain area, this is a huge problem I used to have. I don't know if this is ADHD or if it was just my like hubris, but generally when I'm having a debate with somebody, I'm usually pretty informed of the topic and I'm willing to follow them around anywhere they want to go. Like we can start a debate about Donald Trump and end up at the World Economic Forum, whatever. I'll go wherever you want to go because we can do that. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm confident. I know the material and that's fine. But when I realize this on a meta conversational level, what's actually happening is I'm not actually solidifying any wins in the eyes of any audience because anytime I'm getting close on one area, they'll pivot to another topic until invariably they will find something that I don't know much about and I'll get stumped on an issue. And then the first real L, because I'm not going to just pivot to something else if I don't know, I'll be like, okay, I'm not sure. I look like I've taken an L after an hour of them running from topic to topic to topic. So if somebody wants to drag me to a certain area, like, oh, you're a misogynist, I'm like, okay, and like I'll just like move past it because I don't want to have that fight right there, right now, because that's just not what I'm looking to have a battle over.
Yeah. And I've sensed, and I don't know if this is because you don't want to fight, but you have a way of not taking L's by employing the same thing, which somebody will say something and you'll just go, okay. You know, and there's this sense that you're communicating is, this is almost, I'm too tired of this. This is frustrating or beneath my intellectual engagement at this point.
A little bit, but you have to be careful with that too, because like something that I used to do that I've tried not to do as much is sometimes I'll be going down such a dumb line of argumentation and it's like so frustrating. At the end, I'll just be like, okay, sure.
Okay,
And then move
yeah.
on to the next thing. And maybe in the eyes of my audience, it looks like, okay, like obviously this guy's dumb, he's moving on. But I think to a neutral audience and to the other person's audience, it looks like I'm giving up because I know I've lost the point. So that's like a meta thing I have to manage as well. Like I can't do that. That's why, I don't know if I did any abortion debate. I think I did, but after somebody finishes a ramble, I try not to let people just finish their thing and be like, okay, I usually, and I think I might have even explicitly said, I can't let them just do their whole thing and get their point off. Like I am going to restate my argument until we move on to the next thing. Because if I just let them restate and I go, okay, fine, and we move on, it's going to look to the audience like I'm agreeing with them or I've like given up arguing my point, you know?
Yeah. And within all of this is the idea that you're not taking steps to open your interlocutor up as much as possible. You understand that the goal is not like they're probably, because we're on camera and representing an organization, have an entrenched position that is not going to move. We're not going to cover new ground in their mind. They're gonna fight that.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to an audience who is responding to. There's a bit of like power cues in this. Who's taking L's, who's winning, and that is how they're forming their worldview from a place of a bit more receptivity because they're sitting in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah. Like if I'm arguing about topic X with a person who's the head of organization, we support X to the death.
Yeah.
Like you're not changing your mind. I'm not gonna have a debate with Donald Trump and convince him to be a Democrat. I'm not gonna have a debate with Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton and convince them to, be a free market absolutist capitalist like Republican. Like, yeah. So I understand people in certain positions of influence or ideological organization are going to suffer some degree of audience capture to where they're expected to give certain answers and they have to give certain answers and there's no maneuverability in there for them. So I'm just there to explore how deeply have you thought about this. And then once I've hit that rock bottom, I make my case to the audience, then we kind of move on.
Do you feel that present in your streams, audience capture for you?
Absolutely not. My audience hates some of the takes that I have.
Okay.
To this day, some of my takes from my audience are really unpopular. But I'm not like ideologically owned by anything. So I have a lot more flexibility to kind of like grow and change and move. Like I call myself like the omni-liberal because I'm like, broadly speaking, I'm a liberal, but I try to take like good positions from other people. Like I like guns a lot. I'm a very big proponent of like self-defense and defense of property. I'm really big on like expanded taxation for good social programs. Like I've got like a lot of views all over the place, but I justify them all from like an internal schema that I make available to the public. And yeah, I don't have to worry about like, if somebody brings me up a really good argument for like, Steven, I know that you like guns a lot, but here are really compelling reasons why we should probably get rid of guns. I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll probably change my mind on it then. That's a good argument. Like I'm not like an NRA card carrying member or like a Republican advocate that works for the RNC where I have to have these positions or else I'm threatening some aspect of my income or my livelihood. My audience looks to me to be Steven Bonnell and to have Steven Bonnell's point of view, not to be a progressive or a conservative or a liberal or whatever.
What about ego attachment to winning or losing, or do you notice or feel that in yourself?
Not much because I never lose an argument, so I don't really have to worry about the ego thing.
That could never happen.
I try to employ strategies to manage my ego, especially when I debate with so many idiots. It's very hard not to feel very egotistical sometimes, but like I try to be very careful and I try to qualify my positions very carefully when I'm having certain conversations. So a really good example recently are the Tates. I very much believe that they are guilty of sex trafficking, assuming everything they've said in the YouTube videos is true. They've laid out everything. But I think they should have.
Do you want to take a minute just to talk about that? I've mentioned it on the podcast, but
yeah, basically Andrew Tate has very explicitly detailed how he utilizes women that he's got sexual relationships with to bring in other women that he's promised, monogamous marriages to, that he's asked for servitude and loyalty from. When he brings them in, he'll bring in his bottom bitch. He'll have that bottom bitch convince the girl to start doing sex work, and then he'll get them kind of like enrolled in these programs. He talks about how he defrauds them on their taxes to steal more money from them than what he originally takes. And then there's a whole bunch of other accusations in those indictments.
This is in like a course that he had. I saw something on YouTube.
I don't even know if that was a course. I think that was just him talking.
Sure,
in
it was him
videos.
Talking to the camera.
He's giving courses as well.
I was blown away by some of the things.
But when I say this again, I'm very careful to say if
that's true.
If he's true, he could be just lying for the camera. That's possible.
That could be cool guy stuff.
Yeah, and it should still have to be proven in court beyond a reasonable doubt because that's the standard the world uses generally for criminal convictions, which I support. So because I've given those qualifications, if it does come out that he is acquitted in court because either he was lying to the camera or they just don't have enough evidence, then it's very easy for me to look back and say, well, hey, this was my position all along. He should have stayed in court. He won, so he won, right? And then that's it. I think it's very careful when you have positions to qualify them so that you have space to move away from them given the level of conviction you have for that idea. So like, for instance, right now, my position on abortion, you saw me argue. My position on abortion is I think that conscious beings should be preserved. Conscious human thought should be preserved. But if you don't even have that capacity for conscious human thought, then you're not worthy of moral consideration. So corpses have lost that capacity. Brain dead comatose people in persistent vegetative states have lost that. And fetuses before 20 weeks have lost that. But let's say somebody came up with a study like, hold on, Steven, you said you're pro-choice in the first trimester. Here's a new scientific study that showed that fetuses, 100%, they have conscious thought by 2 weeks. Then I would go, oh, okay, well, that's my marker for when it should be preserved. So I would say I'm probably against abortion now.
Yeah.
But because of the qualifications I've given before, I can very easily move off that position without feeling some egotistical attachment to it, to where, well, now if the position is attacked, now you're attacking my character, and people aren't going to suffer character attacks. I'm not going to. So now you're like roped into fighting for this position, like you're fighting for your life because you're so closely identified with it.
Yeah. It sounds like your positions are, to the best degree possible, built from philosophical foundations upwards to policy, upwards to what we know to be true.
Yeah, and then the conviction matches like the fundamentalness of the belief. So like, I don't have a strong attachment at all to capitalism. I just think it happens to be the best organization of an economy right now. I do have a very strong attachment and a high conviction to creating a society that serves the interests and needs of most people to the best of our abilities without working to the detriment of too many people. I feel very strongly about that. Capitalism is a good tool for it. But if you show me that like a fully socialist utopia would actually work better, I can abandon capitalism immediately. That's fine. I'm not like a hardcore capitalist. I mean, I am in that I support it, but only insofar as it serves those fundamental philosophical positions. And if you show me something that serves those positions better, well, then I'll change, because that's what I really care about.
Why is that hard for people to do?
Generally because most people don't super ground out their positions philosophically. They tend to inherit what I would call like trees or systems of belief from other people. And typically what will happen is if you say one thing, it lights up a whole bunch of tangential things, and all of these things like a ball of yarn are tied together, and you can't really give on any of them without all of it falling apart. So for instance, if I say like, let's talk about like 15 an hour minimum wage. If I'm having a talk with an intelligent person that's thought about it, they might say 15 an hour minimum wage is beneficial because there is some NBER studies that show that when you raise the minimum wage to a certain level, workers are paid more, benefits are already, companies aren't hurt that much. Okay, fine. Most people will say 15 an hour minimum wage is important because we need to pay a living wage. As soon as I've heard somebody say living wage, I know they probably think corporations are evil. They probably think workers and unions are good. They probably think the government is generally against the people and is taking the sides of corporate. Like, they have all these other beliefs, and all of these beliefs are usually tied in a little bit to that 15 an hour minimum wage. So for me to get them off of 15 an hour minimum wage, what they really have to do is deconstruct a whole bunch of other thoughts that they have built in. It could be similarly too, if I'm arguing with right-leaning people. I like to give a left and right example, so I'm not being partisan. If I could be a right-leaning person, we might argue about vaccines, right? For me to argue with them and convince them that the vaccine isn't horrible, well, to them, the vaccine is bad because Fauci and the FDA are corrupt, because the deep state runs everything, because the WF and Klaus Schwab, right? For them to roll over on the vaccine, they would also have to undo all that other stuff. So I think that's the issue. Usually when you're arguing with people, you're not arguing with somebody that has discreetly like established a bunch of different policy positions from a really strong philosophical base. You're arguing with somebody that's inherited like a collection of ideas and beliefs that are all like interdependent on one another.
Yeah. And what I see is that often that collection is tied to tribal alignment.
Oftentimes.
And this is how I fit in my church growing up, or this is how I fit into my progressive group of friends in college. And like, you're actually threatening my survival socially.
Yes.
To start to disown and disinherit some of these beliefs. And that is, why the fuck would I put myself at risk for this conversation?
That's why I thought I brought this up, I think, actually in another show this week, where you've seen Men in Black, I trust, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's that conversation in the park that Kay has with Jay, where Jay says, why don't you just tell people that aliens are real? And Kay says, they couldn't handle it. And Jay says, well, I think people are smart. They could handle it. And then Kay says, a person is smart and people are stupid. And I spent a lot of time this last month thinking about that quote, like why? And I think the answer that I kind of came to was the reason why is because we are, by default, we are very, very, very social creatures. By nature, this is why like scams and con artists work. By nature, we want to like appease the person in front of us. We want to like feel like we're communicating and connecting with people. When you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can get some very reasonable opinions from them. You're giving your take, hopefully in an empathetic way. They're understanding you and hearing you because like it's a one-on-one human interaction. There's a lot of reward there for coming to an agreement and understanding each other. But once they're gone and they go back to a social group, there is almost zero reward. In fact, there's a lot of punishment there for being empathetic to an outside party, but there's so much social reward for buying into the group. And it's that social reward you get for fully buying into the ideas of a group that you're in. I think that's what keeps people locked into tribalistic ways of thinking. And that's where you can pull somebody away from the group, have a really reasonable conversation with them. And then once they run back to the group, they're right back on what they were saying before. Did you see the big red pill debate I had with Rollo Tomasi and Michael?
Yeah.
I said that, and I knew this would happen, and it did happen. I'm very firm on the things I believe. I said multiple times in that debate, hey, listen, because they kept saying, oh, we really agree. Oh, we really agree a lot. Oh, we really agree. And I said explicitly, I said, listen, you're saying that we really agree now, but when I go back to my people, I'm going to say the exact same stuff. You guys are going to start changing up a lot.
This is a debate tactic of yours that I've noticed, which is the Babe Ruth, calling your shot, telling them what's going on.
I will. I'm going to say exactly, because I want to make the audience aware of like the meta stuff. I'm not trying to, when I track meta conversations, I'm not trying to trick people. It's because I want people to be abundantly clear.
How predictable people are and how enslaved they are to ideology or social conformity.
Yeah.
When you say, look, I'm going to do this, you're going to give me this, but you will back out and you will start insulting me as soon as we get to here. It's like the level of predictability in you, it shows that you're not operating as an individual. You're operating as a predictable cog of an ideology or something. But continue. So this was happening with Rollo.
Yeah. I'm just saying that, like, I just to summarize, I understand the social rewards of why people in groups act certain ways, because like you said, why the fuck would I branch out and like think for myself or have some ideas that don't belong to the group when there's so much reward, so much punishment for it, almost no reward. Like your reward is like personally satisfying enrichment of like whatever, like who really cares like that much, right?
Truth, who needs it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, truthfully, right? Yeah. But where, like the social reward is like so much more, it's so much more valid to people.
Yeah. Look, if you have to choose between truth and social cohesion will keep you alive.
Of course.
And truth very well may not. So there's, there's an inbuilt predisposition towards one over the other. I think.
It's like, I don't know if have you ever been involved in like internet drama stuff before?
I've avoided it pretty well.
Okay, this is the worst thing to ever hear. Fuck everybody that's ever told me this.
Right
people
to
do
the
this,
camera.
Yeah, people do this all the fucking time. And you guys all know this too. Every streamer, every YouTuber knows this. The worst fucking message you ever get from somebody is when you're going through some crazy shit and you know it's stupid, that other people are being dumb, and people message you like, hey dude, I just want you to know, like, I really support you. And it's like, why the fuck are you telling me this privately? If you really support me, why don't you go out on Twitter and put your neck out for me, motherfucker? Don't sit here and say, like, oh, I support you. I wish I could say, like, fuck you. Your shit doesn't mean anything then, you know? Yeah, people do that all the time. Because, like, individually, they might know, like, listen, like, I got your back. Like, I know this is fucked up. But publicly, they're not going to say shit. Because the social punishment there is so huge for it.
Couple of thoughts to come up that you were asking. I've asked myself the question, why is a person smart but people are dumb, unruly animals? One of the thoughts, which I don't know if this gels, is that there's that quote, like, the best lack all conviction while the worst have it in spades. And the idea that there's this like, I think it's a healthy tendency towards openness allows you to assimilate more and arrive at truth over the course of a long lifetime. But what leads, we have 5 traits that are typically very charismatic, and high conviction is one of them. That's your Conor McGregor. That's your Donald Trump. That's your Andrew Tate, who is so certain about how everything in the world is going to work. And it's not that he's right about the world. It's that he has high conviction. And when people who have high degrees of openness or are more uncertain, whoever in the group has the most conviction winds up leading oftentimes. And it is not because they are closer to the truth or the most moral way of being, but because they believe it more fully.
This is something that I wrestled with a lot, because regardless of like how egotistical, I guess some people think I come off, I am really humble in terms of like, I know the extent of my knowledge really well. One issue that I ran into because of that is like, if I'm in a debate and somebody brings in something I genuinely am stumped by or don't know, I'll admit it. I'm like, I'm not sure about this. I don't know. Yeah, you might be right on this. But if I'm against somebody else, most people that I argue with have such high conviction on everything, even if they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. And it automatically makes me look weak to be more intellectually humble there. So I had to find strategies around that sort of thing, because it was making me look bad in debates against people that were just wrong. For a little while, I tried this in 2 conversations for a little while, I would just flat out lie. I would have somebody debate me and they would say something. They'd bring up like an econ study. They'd be like, don't you know that like for minimum wage, don't you know that it's true that when you raise minimum wage, there was a study done, I think in like the 2000s or whatever in Massachusetts, where they showed that when they raised the minimum wage, it actually hurt a ton of businesses. I would just flat out say, like, I've actually seen that study and you're completely wrong. It says the exact opposite. Every single time I did that, the person was like, oh, okay, maybe. And then they backed off it immediately. And I'm like, is that easy? Do they have no idea?
The depth of your understanding.
Yeah, I guess they had no idea about it. But I stopped that pretty soon, obviously, because I don't want to like be known as like.
That's not how you want to win.
Yeah.
But you know what? You could probably make a career of that. The level that you would get to before you even got
called out.
And by the way, by that time, you'd have 43% of the population just totally at your back.
Yeah. Basically, what I started doing is now when somebody says that, now I'll qualify heavily like my opinion. So it's like, oh, what do you know this? Usually I'll say, I don't think you're right. I'm pretty sure you're lying about this study. I'm pretty sure I'm going to look this up afterwards and it's going to be the exact opposite of what you're telling me, which usually encourages the audience to start looking immediately. And I'll see people like pop up with answers sometimes. They're like, oh yeah, it was completely opposite. And then I'll say like, if that's true, given what you're saying is true, then I probably would think a little bit different about this. But this is something that I need to research on my own because every time I'm provided data on a subject like this, it's always the exact opposite of what you're telling me. So that's usually how I'll qualify that if it's truly something outside of my area of expertise.
Yeah. Going back just a bit, I was thinking about audience capture and how you've handled it. I was reminded of Jordan Peterson. No, I actually like a lot of what he says. Short term is obviously not beneficial to fall out of line with whatever group you are. And you have to, he's got, I think, some issues with audience capture as well. Yeah. So I acknowledge. But he also is a strong advocate for, I think when he did stand up and disagree with his professors, that was what carved out a new career for him. And when I think of the difference between you and a Fox News anchor, you get to be you professionally forever because you have resisted I will not be a Democrat or Republican or this or that or a mouthpiece for this. And so I get to be me. And you're here. If you're still here, you're here for me. Versus if it's a Fox News anchor and you have a different opinion, you're just gone and nobody cares because they never were there for you. Exactly. They were there for a mouthpiece of the ideology. And so I think that pattern of, yes, there's tremendous short-term benefit for blending in with the group, saying what it is, and there's a short-term cost over a long enough timeline in a safe enough world, which I think we generally live in. You are far better suited to be an individual and say what you think. Do you disagree?
I don't know for everybody. I'm not sure. Okay. I wrestle with that a lot. One of the big things I've been struggling with recently is trying to figure out, like, one thing that Red Pill does really well is it gives people like a whole way to view the world. One of the big benefits about religion is it gives you a metaphysical, a way of like understanding like what things are. It gives you an epistemic, a way to like evaluate what is true and false, how to understand knowledge, and an ethical view of the world. You get all three of these things completely solved for you. The world is what the Bible says it is. Truth is what God tells you. Ethics are the 10 Commandments. You get everything solved for you, and you don't have to worry about any of that dumb shit. And then you can just go and live your life.
That is such an anxiety reducer. I don't even think people acknowledge the tremendous. I mean, some people who might have left religion have had these crises moments. The amount of anxiety that enters into your system when you go, "Holy cow, these big questions are unanswered," is insane. So solving them in one fell swoop is pretty psychologically tempting.
Yeah. So I think that's why those movements are so successful. So like I think Red Pill movement does a lot of similar things. It's very difficult for me to combat those movements because I'm very discreet with all of my thoughts. Like they don't all come from one ideological movement. So I can, in some ways it'll seem like I'm all over the map on things. But in other ways, like if you understand my philosophical foundations, like it's pretty easy to guess what my opinions about a given topic will be. But it's hard because sometimes people will ask me like, oh, like what should I think about a given thing? And usually I'll say, well, like give me your core values and I'll give you probably the direction that you should head. But they don't always have those worked out. So they're really just asking me like, the last thing I want is I don't really want my audience to copy my policy positions. I kind of want them to copy my thought process. And if we end up disagreeing at the end of the day on some policy positions, that's fine. But I don't want you just like repeating verbatim, like, because one, I might change my mind because other data will come out. And two, I kind of defeats the entire purpose of my whatever political project, whatever you call my channel, if you're just like treating me as like another Fox News anchor. Like, oh, what is my ideology? Whatever Destiny says, right? That's not like
Well, recently, I think it's interesting that you say that because you've got the political, and I think that was a huge piece of what you did. There's so much more social aspect of what you're doing. You're talking a lot with the Red Pill. And I've heard you say that they don't address relationships. There's a lot of things that are taken just they don't matter to the red pill movement because it's up until you have sex with her and then maintain frame. I'm curious, this is perhaps broad, but we can narrow in on it. What you would recommend broadly as an approach to interactions with women from men, like what is not the antidote to the red pill, but what is a competing view of the world that people can live through?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time.
And this is, it's like, leave this and go where? Wow.
The issue is that like they have like such a compelling narrative to describe the whole world. I would argue that it's a bad narrative because like all bad narratives, it makes really bad predictions. A good narrative is one that will give you accurate predictions of how people will behave or how the world will respond to what you're doing. And I don't think anything in the red pill predicts anything good. You follow the red pill to a T. It's not like, you remember like the PUA scenes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I didn't like them, at the very least, I could say, like, if you follow a lot of PUA shit, you'll probably get laid. I don't think that's true with the red pill. I don't think it's going to give you any success with women, any success with relationships.
What is the difference between PUA and red pill? I don't know enough of I thought that they were, like, closely related to
I think red pill kind of can review it, but PUA seemed to, like, acknowledge, like, these are the ways that you can kind of get women. These are the
things to say, things to
wear.
Yeah,
the, like, little psychological tricks
to do, yeah.
Red pill has gotten to this whole weird, crazy world of, like, sexual market value and like high value men can juggle multiple women and women like to be cheated on because it makes them more competitive. And you need to fuck 50 women by the time you're 35 so that you can settle down with a virgin to get married and have a family. But also you should never get married because all women are looking to fuck your life over in divorce. So you shouldn't even live with your significant other to avoid common law marriage. It's just like, it's a wacky world of like, one, it makes bad predictions of human behavior because most people are not like this. And then two, it's not going to help you get any girls because like none of this shit, never in the life of has any woman been like, I wish my boyfriend was more into red pill stuff. That's just never been a conversation to be having.
There is, I think that if I had to give them the truth in it is that, and I think this is unfortunate, is like, there are women who respond well and with a more commitment to being cheated on. That doesn't mean these are
that's got to be like the
damaged people,
a crazy exception.
Yes, and you know I've spoken. They have the way that red pill describes relationships, in my opinion, is like two traumatized people just.
That's what it sounds like. When I listen to a lot of people, it sounds a lot like
and they're going to take all your money and they're going to do all this. It's like that happens, and you can point out examples like. There are also a lot of divorces that don't do that. There are people that walk away and don't make that decision. There are people that
people talk so much about like alimony, destroying. Like, alimony is like 10% of all divorces. It's not like the most common thing in the world.
And if your world matches that worldview, I see why it's very appealing. But it actually says less about the world and more about the people that you draw into your own life through the way that you are being. If everyone that you interact with is into super high status, flashy men, and doesn't give a shit about the type of personality you have, and you make a conclusion that this is what women are, this is what the women in the pond that you are fishing in are like, and that are responding to you are like.
There was a really frustrating line, and it was like one of the biggest self-reports I've ever seen, but I don't think anybody realized it. Fresh and Fit did an episode with Valuetainment where they had like 40 girls on, and it was just them and like Fresh and Fit. And one of the lines that Myron uttered to one of the girls was like, listen, if you want to be seen in this world as a man, you've got to be a high achiever. Like all the men that you see here, we're only here because we achieved high. You're just here because you're a girl. And it's like, it's your show. You invited them.
Your show.
Like, do you think people make it to Oprah just because they're an attractive woman? Do you think people make it to like a late night show or a late show just because they're attractive? Like, that's your choice, you know? So if you keep surrounding yourself with those types of people, the philosophy becomes self-fulfilling. I remember the first...
it is your world, because nobody's world is 7 billion people. Their world is 70 people. And then they talk about the world. And like, we've got everybody talking about the world, it's like the people discussing what an elephant is, you know, all trying to make an agreement. It's like, no, you're just describing your small section of it that you have selected for.
Yeah, hard
by who you are.
I remember the first time I left Fresh and Fit, I remember thinking like, holy shit, if all women were like the women on this show, I would be fucking super red pill. Yeah, 100%. I get it now. If these are the women that they bring on all the time,
Yes, and it is not a mistake that they are here. They are here in the way that they are because they were invited by you, attracted by you. Let's talk about game, or like, you know, how should, I don't know if have you approached dating in a way that is different, or, you know, if you were to share, because I don't know that there's a lot of other competing narratives out there.
Man, I don't know. It's like, again, I don't think I have like a wholly cohesive narrative. There's just like a lot of little things that I've kind of like learned over the years. I guess like one is I know who I am, and I know the kind of people I attract. and I know the kind of people that wouldn't be attracted to me. So like I'm very much into like kind of like
this is super important, by the way. And I don't think this is discussed because the idea of red pill is this is who women are.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is there are lots of different people attracted to lots of different things. Some women are going to go to the gym, they're going to get really swole, and they're going to date the guy that is 300 pounds of raw muscle. And that is going to be every boyfriend they have. Somebody else is going to date every skinny rocker. Somebody else is going to date people that are deadbeats and they just need to caretake. Like,
if there's a girl on Tinder and she's like, I need a guy with 36-inch arms. It's like 6'4". It's like, I'm not going to be barking up that tree. I know. Yeah. So there's a certain type of girl that I like, and there's a certain type of girl that likes me. I tend to like maybe kind of like nerdier, kind of like alt girls, people that are like very aggressive, like career, intellectual driven girls. Like this tends to be the crowd, game people, maybe politics people. These tend to be like the crowd that I do well with. And so that's kind of like the crowd that I navigate through the most. That's not exclusively what I'm, what I can score with. It just depends on
why
like,
is it the crowd that you do well in? I think it's because that is reflective of where you would be otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, like on a first date, typically my style of, seduction sounds so cringe. Conversation, I'll say, is I'm usually talking to somebody. Usually my goal is to ask a person a lot of questions to figure out like what's kind of like your life, what are the things you're into, what are you passionate about? Like my goal is through conversation to figure out like what are some things that you feel really strongly about, maybe you don't get to talk about a lot that you'd like to, and how can I listen to you talk about these things and like engage with it like in a funny way that shows that I'm like charismatic, charming, humorous, but also that I'm like really listening to you and giving you an opportunity to kind of like talk about things that are important to you, right? And then also gives me an opportunity to showcase my personality at the same time, right? If I'm talking to a woman, she says she's got like a huge passion for teaching, and I'm like, oh, like what grade, like why? And she's like, oh, middle schoolers, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm bring up like, oh, I've got a 12-year-old son, I would kill myself if I had to deal with like 20 of them at a time, right? It's a funny joke. She knows how difficult it is dealing with kids, right? Things to like, yeah. So like that style of conversation will be where I go. There's a lot of like personality traits I have that I think are really good for getting people to open up to me. I'm very non-judgmental. I try to be really emotionally communicative. Like I'm sensitive to certain topics.
Non-judgmental is very, very powerurful.
What?
Especially on non-judgmental.
Oh yeah, non-judgmental is super. Yeah, people generally feel like they can share a lot of things with me without me being judgmental about it.
I think this is even zooming out again without dogging on the red pill, especially as regards having sex. If you're a person who has a tremendous amount of judgment for women who engage in sex, and you are also a person who is going out trying to have quick sex with women.
It's super dumb.
Those are cross purposes, and you will exude, bleed, or otherwise really have to hide that because some part of you is, I do not respect the women who do the thing that I am hoping that they do.
It's real dumb, yeah. I want to say like half the girls I hooked up with in California, I think, because for a while when I was in California and I was on Tinder, I that was a stage of my life where I didn't want to deal with anybody that knew me online, so I removed all of my fucking online personality shit from there because I just wanted to deal with like normies or whatever. But a lot of the girls that I hooked up with were they had like no hookups, no one night stands on their profile, and I think they're like talking and associating with people. I think it's because people feel really bad about being judged with it.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple where like, and obviously they felt safe, they felt comfortable, they felt cool, and we would do stuff, and then afterwards they're like, oh, like don't think I'm like a slut because I know this is like the second time we've seen each other or whatever. And I was like, no, it's cool, it doesn't matter. So people like people that are emotionally responsive, that are really listening. I don't fake anything for conversations. Like if I'm asking you questions because I have a genuine interest in it, and that's going to show through my engagement.
How did you develop, or was that just natural to you? Because that is very difficult for me, for a lot of people, to not smooth things over. Did that come easily to you, or was that?
What do you mean to not smooth things over, or
to so many people, in order to fit in, they are not asking or being like, how do I show myself? They are asking, what do you want me to be? How can I figure that out and then be that for you? And I'm curious if that was just something that came easily to you, this sense of I don't fake shit.
I mean, one is that like I have a pretty strong personality. I've got a pretty strong character. I think two is that like, I think people like that. I think people like confidence, and I think people, especially women, like passion.
No, it's counterproductive to do with the thing that I described that a lot of people do. For
like
sure.
There's something I noticed really early in life, in like my late teens, like early 20s, before I even got like into streaming or whatever, is it was really, really, really fun. Oh, also, and this is really lame, but the thing that helped me the most was I was always friends with lots of girls through high school because of the people that I hung out with. There was always groups of girls. So I was always really confident and comfortable talking to women. Even though I was short, had horrible acne, I didn't really have much going for me physically, but I was super funny, super charismatic, lots of experience talking to girls. Something I noticed really early on, and I probably employed this more as like a trick than more understanding what was happening. But like if I'm talking to a girl, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what kind of music do you listen to? She says something like, oh, like I really like Newfound Glory. If I say something like, oh my God, That's like my worst band of all fucking time. I can't believe you like, they have, every album is bad. Name like 2 good songs. If you challenge, especially like a pretty girl like that, their eyes light up and like, what do you mean? Like she's never had somebody push back against her entire life.
And the pickup artist sort of understood this. And this was the concept of a neg, which got blown out of proportion because it's not an insult. It is a disqualifier of, I am just like every other guy trying to say whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yes.
But you got to be so careful because a lot of people.
It's not an insult.
Yes. That's so important because a lot of people watch me interact with people and they're like, oh, all Destiny does is a neg. And it's like, no, if you watch conversations I have with people, they're always laughing. They're always smiling and having fun. And I'm never, like, I would never go on a first date with a girl. Like, I might go on a first date with a girl and say, like, I love your dress. My grandma has a tablecloth that looks just like it as like a joke. But I would never be like, oh my God, that dress makes you look so fat.
Yeah.
I would never say that, right?
Yeah.
Because one is like a funny kind of jokey thing and we can go back and forth. And especially if you've been used to dealing with simpy guys all your life, having somebody that's willing to have a backbone and give a little bit of pushback for some conversation is so much fun. But it's never going to be like, I'm trying to hurt you and make you feel bad.
Yeah.
You know?
The big difference that I noticed in myself and other people that I would teach or talk to is that the way that men engage in conversation and the way that flirting occurs are just different. Men are often very logical. What time do we do here? I express that I like you. You receive that I like you. You report back to me if you like me in return. And for women, it's much more of what is occurring underneath the conversation. And if you can't detect, like what you're describing there is, somebody might see he's insulting women. That is what they like. And what is occurring in my analysis underneath that conversation is he is providing an injection of fun, emotional play into this conversation. And now we can spar playfully back and forth, which is a fun thing to do. But then that can be misinterpreted by people who don't understand the subtleties of it, of insult.
Because people will see it and they'll be like, I'm like such a nice guy to like so many girls and this guy's a fucking asshole and he gets like all the girls.
And it's not,
like, even the guys that are fuckboys and assholes, and I know a lot of them that do fuck a lot of girls, but like, oh, he's an asshole and he gets the girls. When you watch them interact with girls, it's similar to what I'm saying. It's generally not them being really rude or horrible. Usually even if they're being like really aggressive or kind of like insulting, it's on stuff that's not that big. Like the word, they might say like, oh, your last boyfriend was a loser or something like that, but it's like in a playful kind of way. If it was like it'll be stuff that's not like, you're a fat whore. Come fuck me, you know? Yeah.
Got it. So, I actually, so earlier today, I had Dr. K. We sitting in your seat right now. This is
Wait, he lives around here?
No, he was in town for VidCon.
Where? And he was earlier today?
Earlier today.
Fuck. I just talked to him. I like that guy so much.
He's really cool.
You should have told me he was here.
Sorry.
I would come by earlier.
I got to tell you, I loved I've loved both conversations that I've had with him. It's been really,
me too. He's a really smart, cool dude. Yeah.
We should, well, he was actually chatting. This is about having some sort of creator event that I was like, dude, sign me up. I would love to participate. But it was the broad idea of the way that he approached it with me, and maybe for everybody else, there's a different thing that draws him to it. But it was like, there's a couple of groups out there. There's the business people that are like optimizing for business and want to like do everything in order and have their 5 a.m. morning routine to make money. And then there's not this holistic group of people who like care about the cause that they're doing, coming together to talk about that. And we had chatted about mental health related to both men and women, but focusing, I guess, on men. And he was like, yeah, these 19-year-olds need help, man. They need help. And I was touched by that. And so there's another conversation to have, but I was like, I would love to be a part of something for that. Cause I do see, I've interacted with a handful, the lostness of, I think 19 is a lost age, but there is so much fear around experimenting for the 19-year-olds that I encounter. Like there's so many high stakes. When I was 19, it wasn't that everything went on. Maybe there was a Facebook, but really there wasn't even at the time. And now it's total fear of sexual harassment, total fear of getting blown up online for doing something wrong. Not certain with what it means to be a man and that sort of stuff. And not that I had it any easier. Do you see the same thing in like a generational struggle?
Yeah, the internet stuff makes everything really weird.
It seems like it makes it really hard to be a kid.
I'm so happy I had like one foot in each world. That I grew up like I was addicted to video games. I played so much shit online. I had so many friends online, but I love real life interaction with people.
And you didn't have it when you were 3. Just download it into your head.
Probably helps a bit too. Yeah, but there's nothing replaces real life interactions, and a lot of human development is undermining of the human spirit. It seems to be a lot of human development needs to be on rails. You can't have like a 2-year-old or like a 10-year-old and be like, okay, figure life out. Like it's probably good that we're forced into classrooms with a lot of our peers. We're forced to do activities. We're forced to do a few sports. We're forced to do things because by virtue of doing that, you will develop certain skills. That's why I always laugh when like red pillar people talk about like hypergamy and women only go with the high blah 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 people. And it's like, no, the way that it works is people that are around each other fuck each other. That's why classmates are always fucking. If you go into any restaurants, people are always fucking.
Photographers clean up.
Yeah, everybody in every area.
Yeah.
If men and women are working together long enough, they're going to start fucking. It just always happens. And I even had an idea that like, and maybe it would help for the US, that like on Sundays, there should be like a fucking government forced activity for people the ages of like 22 to 26, where you've got to do like a 4-hour community service project with like 20 other citizens. Because it would force us to go outside and get active. It would force people to like socialize with other people. And like, it would just be so healthy to force the social interactions of people. Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but my understanding of college, it's a lot of things, but it's a closed environment where the highest status guy is only 22 years old.
Yeah.
Which is actually really important when you're 18, because it's like, look, do I want to open up to everything that's available on an Instagram and in my city and all of the people that are above her in the workplace and all this? Or do I want to have a thing where the coolest guy is a senior brother at Beta Theta Z?
Yeah.
And so it's this condensed, smaller sexual marketplace where 18-year-old men who are at oftentimes the bottom of the barrel, because women might date up, which I do agree with that red pill perspective, they can have encounters with women that are, happy to be there and not, with their older brother or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the opening up of every marketplace, I think, has been really bad. It's true politically as well. Like if you have like a political tribe, like multiple political tribes in like Des Moines, Iowa, that's probably okay and it's probably understandable. But it's not good that we have like 4 political tribes across the entire country. Yeah. Because like it becomes, the amount of issues that you need buy-in to just becomes absurd, and it makes everything so stupid.
So hold on, it's not good that we have 4 political tribes. We should have less or more. I'm not understanding.
Like there should be millions more locally. Okay. Like for instance, like the fact that everybody in this country right now knows who AOC is, and like 2% of people know who their like fucking governor is, probably, unless you live like in fucking Florida or Texas or California, right? And everybody knows, right? More people here, I would bet my life on this. More people know who the governor is of Florida than the governor of their own state. I know that for a fact. Yeah. Right. More people know who, like Abbott, Newsom, like other people. Like more people know these people than fucking than their own. Yeah. And I think that's a problem, because like when you ask people like the issues they care about, it's like, I care about like Ukraine and immigration and social health care. And I was like, okay, but like, what about where you live? The stuff that you actually have a big impact on. And like, who cares about that, right? The federal, the national, international stuff is so much cooler and so much more sexy. And I think that's probably bad. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying is because the marketplace has opened, there's these broad conversations that occur. So I was going to ask you the question of, you have a ton of, you're talking about abortion yesterday, you're talking about maybe student loans the next day. What are the issues that matter? And it occurred to me in that response that maybe the issues that matter are very local to you and are actually smaller than the ones that we can all share and get a ton of views on any podcast or stream or whatever. And that there's a misalignment of incentives when it comes to social media consumption and where your efforts are best spent to make a big impact in your life.
Yep. Imagine trying to make like, did you ever do like sports in college or high school or anything?
I did intramural. I was not good enough to be on.
Sure. Okay. I mean, like imagine you have to design like a strength and conditioning program and then like a practice routine, but that one routine has to work with everybody that plays football, soccer, fencing, and like tennis. Yeah. And trap shooting. Like that's like what that's what our national level conversation is, right?
And that's why we talk about trans, for people that have never met a trans person, don't need to discuss. Constantly.
Like there are people,
you don't need to care at all.
Yeah, if you're in Arkansas, I don't know if Leah Thomas is having that big of an impact in your life, but you better believe a lot of them have an opinion on it, right?
Deeply important to you, because this is something that for whatever reason touches on a commonality of the human psyche, even though it might not be important in individual lives.
Yeah. So then you end up in this weird place where like girls in California are crying because of like Roe v. Wade. Yeah. And it's like, you're not.
I shit you not, that happened at the coffee shop. They had face paint.
And I was like, bro, you're in California. Okay? You're not going to lose your right to an abortion.
Well, the other thing that I was like, wait a second, Mexico, just south of the border, way closer than the next Republican state from here, doesn't have the same access to abortion we've had, and that's been the case, and you haven't been crying about it every day. Yeah. Why is today different? Now, you can be upset about the shift, but it does seem like social media, this is not even an interesting take, has just totally corrupted people's ability to prioritize and understand their own environment because you are merely reacting to the stories of your friends that week. So
yeah, and the stories are always
last
on
week.
These. Yeah,
can you remember? This is the thing that I can't remember what they were 3 weeks ago or a month ago or 6 weeks ago, and there's almost no accountability to the serious importance except in memes. Memes seem to be the only thing that capture. Last weekend, I was a pandemic expert. This week, I am a submersible expert or something like that.
The amount of people talking about like the tensile strength of carbon fiber weaves. And I was like, bro.
It was definitely implosion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. It was because people were posting a picture of like the monitor being screwed into like the hole. And they're like, oh, it was definitely the screw that caused it. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, it seems to demonstrate that conversation is not intended to exchange important bits of information around truth, but to establish social bonds and ability to connect. So we talk about the sports team or the politician or the submarine at the bottom of the thing and our theories on why it happened. We even argue about them, but that shouldn't be confused for a sincere attempt to understand what is true about any given thing or make effective decisions in your own life.
Yeah, something that I keep stressing to people that a lot of people don't want to accept, and I think you don't have to tell people they don't accept it, but it's true. Humans are not fundamentally truth-seeking machines. We seek like pleasure, and truth generally only works in service to pleasurable sensations. People don't want uncomfortable truths that they can't act on in some way to make more pleasure for their lives or whatever. Did you ever play Metal Gear Solid games?
Yeah.
Do you remember the end of Metal Gear Solid 2 when they talk about like the internet and everything?
I don't remember the end.
Oh, it was a really interesting conversation. I don't know how they guessed so much, but they're trying to create like this AI that's going to control the world. And at first they're like, you're trying to censor information on the internet. And the AI was like, no, we don't need to censor information. There's already millions of pieces of trite information collecting at accelerated rates. All we need to do is create the context of certain stories so that some information appears more woven together than others, essentially. It was like, I think he said like creating context, not deleting content or whatever, which is true, right? Like today we have the internet. Like if your hypothesis is humans are fundamentally truth-seeking machines, then we should be more informed today about almost every issue than we ever have been. Wikipedia exists, okay? Back in my day, if you had a debate on like, is like Guam a U.S. territory or is it like another country or whatever, you have to open a goddamn Encyclopedia Britannica, okay? You got to go to the bookshelf, you got to open shit. You can Google any answer today. So where are we at today for humans? They're not more intelligent than they've ever been. We're prone to more misinformation than fucking ever before. So it seems like the internet, despite its ability to demonstrate so much truthfulness, that's not how we use it because it's there, but rather truth only works in service to as long as it makes us feel good. And if something else makes you feel better than the truth, you're going with the other thing, you know?
Do you think that is a forever fact of humanity? Is that surmountable? Because it implies the world that we live in where if everyone was oriented to the truth, conversation and debate would look incredibly different. Disagreements would look incredibly different. We'd be trying to find that as opposed to whatever, assert power and survive. Do you think that changes at any way, or is that just baked in?
No, you're never, fundamentally, your brain is just not built for truth. We've got a ton of ways to understand the world that don't work very well today because of how complicated our world is, and our brains just weren't built to sift through this much information. Like things like pattern recognition and responding to said patterns is like one of the things we do really, really, really well, and that doesn't work in today's society, right? Like if you go back to the wilderness, if you've got 3 men standing somewhere and a bush is shaking and 2 guys run away and one dude wants to investigate and the guy gets eaten by a tiger, there's not very much reproductive reward there for being curious and exploratory. Whereas today, if like 1 or 2 black people or Indians or women do something wrong to you, very quickly you've established that pattern. I'm not going to interact with these people anymore. Fuck them all. They're horrible people. But that's like your brain is really good at pattern recognition, which is really positive for learning, acquiring new skills, of recognizing patterns. But it also like instills a lot of patterns or projects a lot of patterns that don't accurately exist or explain the world because the world is so much more complicated today. Yeah,
I find myself wanting to give an argument in truth's defense right now.
It's hard, but
yeah. Do you feel, I don't want to say separate, but different from other people in that? If obviously there's some scale of like zero interest and allegiance to the truth and some or more.
My idea is that in the long term, the truth is the best thing because it'll serve the interest of most people because you can use truth to derive value from it. Like truth is instrumental in effecting some sort of beneficial end. So like doing good medical research will find good medicines that will heal people or prolong people's lives, or using truth to figure out good policy positions to help people, right, is a good thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess there's also there's no other game in town if it is true. Like you can fight against it and form a cabal of people who resist, and you can have safety within that limited world. But yeah, I don't know. I'm having increasing faith in truth, even the meditative truths that have nothing to do with what is factually right and wrong, but the investigation of the self and that kind of stuff. I find.
Yeah, it's got a benefit. What?
Do you meditate or do any of that?
No, and I might start it. I'm like on a life journey this week, trying to reshuffle a lot of things in my brain and everything. So,
tell me about that.
If
you're comfortable.
Yeah, I've grown a lot over the past year. I've exploded. We went out to eat earlier, and like 6 people recognized me, like outside this.
Do you know why you've grown a lot this last year? I mean, I have my sense of it, but
the Red Pill stuff got really big, so a lot of people see me there. TikTok is also an explosive platform for recognition. I think those two. Oh, and because personally, I think I'm the best person in the world at this. As I said, of being humble before, I'm really good at going to and adapting to other platforms. So I can go to a show where the audience is initially very hostile towards me, and I can have a challenging but very fun and exciting conversation where people are glad that I'm there, even if they don't like me. So to summarize, a new type of content, that social content that's very popular. TikTok, utilizing that as a platform, has gotten really big. And then being able to go to tons of different platforms and be seen in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Like before here, I was on like the Impact Theory podcast. Then I went on the Iced Coffee.
That's I think a big thing is rather than just being in a political Twitch world, it's now a YouTube, TikTok. What do you want to talk about world? And I also, this is a small thing, but you mentioned this, the blue hair is,
I agree.
Are you going to keep it?
I think it triggers so many people. I feel like I have to at this point.
I think you might have to. It is not that you need it. It is, I think it's really good for
branding.
I'm
the blue-haired cuck guy.
Fucking incredible. It's but you're the blue-haired cuck guy that then breaks that mold.
Yeah, exactly.
With a few minutes of watching. That is incredibly, incredibly powerful. When we would teach people, it's not even a very important thing, but I lived abroad for a long time. And I spoke Portuguese in Brazil, and I thought that was so cool. And I would always instantly want to share my Portuguese. The reaction from people who lived in Brazil was, "Oh, your Portuguese is okay." I learned, sandbag it for 7 minutes. Speak only English, ask them to engage in you with English, and then 7 to 10 minutes in, start speaking Portuguese.
Way more impressed.
Oh my fucking God. Because you allow them to form a box and then you break it. The box that I was in the first time was, this is a foreigner who speaks some Portuguese. I've met that guy before. But this is a typical American tourist, and then I broke that. And that created such a lasting impact. And I think it's the same thing with the blue hair, which is like another one of these.
I had a conversation about that recently. That in some ways I like starting from behind here because I'm like going to be the blue-haired guy that's going to be screeching and screaming. But in reality, I'm going to bring you very logical, reasonable arguments. I'm not going to be hyper-emotional. To go back really quick, because you just brought up something that really triggers me about Red Pill is like, men today are too feminine and blah, 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 blah. In my opinion, you've got like, if your feminine and masculine meters are like 100% masculine and then 100% feminine, that's like the most you can be. Like in the world today, it feels like from both sides, it's like the best man is like 100% masculine and like 2% feminine. And then like the best women are like 100% feminine or like 2% masculine. In my opinion, I think you need a huge amount of both of these things. Like 100% masculine and like 90% feminine is so big.
Yeah.
And it's funny when they talk about like for seducing girls, you need to be maximum fucking masculine. What you just described, having a smattering of or like a wide variety in terms of like the personality you can have or show to people. Oh my God. Like if you watch my outward appearance, and people might laugh because I'm not like a super like giga chatter tall guy, but I have a very masculine demeanor. I'm screaming at people. I'm fighting with people. I'm very like confident and like shouty or whatever. Like that's like the outward appearance I have. And if somebody knows me that way, but then like, this is like such an easy one. If I get into a girl's apartment and I get like her cat or dog to like me, it's fucking over. Okay.
Because I have to say, you have the best demeanor with dogs.
Yeah.
Anyone that came over, I was legitimately surprised.
Yeah. But dude, if you're in a girl's apartment and your cat is like up here, like, and you're like, it's over at that point. Right. Or if I'm allowed to like play piano.
I got to talk. It showed a tremendous amount of emotional understanding.
Yeah.
We have a rescue dog who, she barks at people and it can feel like she's angry at you or aggressive and she's scared. And she barked at you once, she barked at you twice. I thought that was the end of it because I've seen this happen. And you got down very low, slowly extended your hand. And as she approached you, I was like, oh, this guy this guy gets it. He knows how this game.
Yeah. So it's funny because like I have like a masculine like demeanor generally in terms of how I approach people and deal with the world, but like my really the big seductive side of me is like my feminine side, and not feminine in that like I'm like, oh, I want to cry, blah blah blah, but in that I have like a high level emotional understanding. I can play piano music for you. I can do things, and it's like that feels so cool coming from somebody that also has like all the masculine traits too. And I think of like that's true even for like if you can imagine like James Bond, right? Like a character like that, if that guy were to come into a room like holding his like child or whatever, it would, oh my God, like your heart just would like melt. But yeah, I was just, that thing you brought up for the Portuguese thing, if you wait a second to reveal it, the surprise is like, oh my God, there's like a lot more to you than I initially thought. That's a very effective way of getting people to be very interested in you, because you seem to break so many molds when you do that.
Yeah, I would do that with everything. So if there was a guitar around, don't pick up the guitar. Leave the guitar for, a while. A little bit, yeah. Don't touch it. Whatever you do, because, you're the guy with the guitar and you play okay compared to the other guy with the guitar that I saw. But if you're the guy whose company I enjoyed, and then you can play the guitar all right.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very, very cool. Yes.
It's a shame that, as you were talking, that feminism is associated with screeching, crying, and not, like, forget masculine or feminine. There are healthy virtues, and one of them is emotional attunement, the capacity to do that, the ability to feel your own emotions, to empathize with other people. That is a virtue. And that it is associated with
being weak.
Yeah.
And I like being able to have those types of really challenging conversations, or to be a sounding board for somebody else to do that, that's a very difficult thing to do. It requires a high level of emotional attunement, and it requires a lot of strength to do it. That's very difficult for whether it's opening up to somebody else in a responsible way, or having them open up to you and being like receptive, non-judgmental, and being able to provide support in a meaningful way. That's a really difficult skill to have.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest, stuff with therapy or psychedelics that I've done is the falling apart. The being in hurt is the hardest part. Like, it's one thing to be in hurt with armor and be tough, and like those are not fun situations, but being in pain and then being able to take that to empathize with someone else later in your life is, it took a tremendous amount of strength to develop that capacity. And I know that is detected and felt, and there's a new possibility. I understand in Conan the Barbarian times this maybe wasn't the case, but like there is a new possibility for empathetic male leaders who are emotionally attuned, who are capable of crying, who do cry at when they're moved by things.
Yeah, but it has to be balanced by the masculinity too. I'm not going to tell you like
get shit done.
Yeah, don't
decisive.
Be like a little baby pussy, blah blah blah.
Yes.
But like this is true of like all the best leaders too. It's funny because like when you talk about like alphas in society or whatever, the biological animal world definition is fairly true, but the way that it's ripped on by these communities is so false. If you look at like silverback gorillas, like, think as strong as a gorilla is, it's not going to fight off three at once. An effective leader, like the gorilla, the leader of the alpha of the pack, is also breaking up fights.
Did you watch the chimp documentary at all?
I haven't. No.
They have to groom each other,
and they had to do a lot of social grooming.
The beta will ask to do the grooming, but it's a reciprocal arrangement at that point.
And if you think of effective leaders in companies or whatever, they're not alpha guys that are fucking screaming at people all the time. They're usually pretty empathetic leaders. They understand the needs of other people around them, and they're doing their best to be like a leader that's responsive to the needs of their team. It's not just somebody that's like, oh, fuck you guys, get to work or fucking die, Dale Carnegie's book, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, has a lot of tricks for like motivating people to work hard or whatever. None of them ever are like the 7, the highly effective things of leadership. Like start 1, like call all of your employee scum, fire half of them immediately, tell the other half they don't work hard, they're going to be, it's just...
Interesting. So we were on your life reevaluate, and then we got sucked into that. So,
yeah.
I
have a lot of like, I've been thinking a lot about like, how do I want to navigate the world in terms of like, how do I respond to people that are trying to destroy me? How do I engage with people that are very politically different than me? How do I manage my own community? How do I manage the expectations other communities have of me? Like all of these are questions that I've had that I'm trying to like solidify more.
One of them that I know that you had previously got to, which I was going to ask, this is a good time, is you moved from your own words, blood sport debate to employing empathy. What occasioned that? Why?
Just a lot of reflection on conversations I've had, and a lot of like deliberation on like what is like the most effective debate style, what gets people to agree with me more, what seems to be more effective. Reading a few papers on like how people are putting defense mode.
Do you feel differently, or just doesn't bother you? You're game to roll in the mud?
I'm not, I shouldn't roll in the mud more because it's not good for me, but it would be fun to...
What does good for you mean? I'm curious if your own internal experience, like, because I know that there's times where it's like, I want to fucking, let's go for each other's jugulars.
I always want to.
Can we please just try to do this?
Yeah.
And, that I know the fun of that. And
absolutely.
But there's a different kind of connection that is available when you go the empathy route.
Basically, it's like there's a lot of people that look up to me. There's people in other communities that want to look up to me. There's a certain message that I'm trying to get out to as many people as possible. And you have to make very precise deals with the devil when you're trying to figure out how edgy you want to be. Did you see my Lex Friedman interview by chance?
Yeah. We mentioned it last time. Yeah.
I haven't found a good replacement for the word retarded.
Yeah.
And perhaps I could have lost that interview with Lex Friedman because when he heard me say retarded, he didn't like that word, right? That's just like one example, but like there's a lot of behaviors that like I could engage in, and I have to be very careful about like picking like what do I want my battles to be. So like the blue hair is a good example. How I dress is a good example. Like these are the only clothes I have left because I've so ignore that. But like I've been wearing like dress shoes, pants, nice shirts, bloomers. Like I've been trying to like be more presentable. Yeah. But like before I was thinking like I like the idea of showing up in like sweatpants and a t-shirt, but I'm going to be very intellectual. I'm going to be very formal. I'm going to do like all of my shit as well. Like I'm going to be, it's not just like a random idiot because of how I'm dressed. But it's like picking, and then you mentioned it earlier with the blue hair, right? Like in some ways I want to break your preconceptions of who I am. But then in other ways, there are going to be some people that never listen to me.
I'm going to just go, I'll wear the suit and I'll get the cred that comes with wearing the suit. There's a decision to be made.
Yes,
do I want to break this, or do I want to ride off the reputation and the assumptions that I know that you will make when I present myself in a certain way?
Yeah. But there's benefits and there's cons to both sides, to everything. Like there are going to be some people that respect me so much more because I'm willing to break that rule. And there are going to be some people that I don't even want to fuck with this guy. Why would I take a man with blue hair seriously? Right. So it's identifying those trade-offs is very challenging. Yeah.
There's also, I do want to get to the other things that you're valuing in your life. There's an incentive, which it doesn't seem like you're too heavily, well, maybe you can tell me. The drama drives interest. You know what I mean? So for one, I was invested in the MLD drama. I was there. I was 100% clicking on anything with those 3 letters in it. I was fascinated by the whole thing. And I'm curious if you've thought about that, because there is certainly a quick reward in terms of notoriety and popularity and money for the more drama-filled things that you might engage in.
Love drama. I'm not above covering drama.
Okay.
There's drama that's like really funny. Yeah,
that's
absolutely. But not even because the money's there. I mean, it is, but it's really entertaining. Like drama is like the human aspect to everything. Like people act like they're above drama. Everybody loves drama. Everybody does, because you can relate to it directly, right? You can see it direct, like you know what relationships are like, you know what fighting is like, and that's just like really exciting. So yeah, I'll cover it. I just have to be careful how I cover things. Like I've got a lot of responsibility in terms of not getting information wrong. I've done that in the past. I can't dogpile too hard. It's got to be people that are like deserving of it, and I need to move on in an appropriate time. So I just have to be careful how I do it. But yeah, I'm not like avoiding it or anything. Yeah.
Is there any other stuff that was in this like self-reflective evaluation that you are thinking about?
No, just that. Sometimes I worry about something that I've thought about a lot is I've had this desire to restructure my life a lot, to have a lot more discipline. Like I've been going to the gym pretty consistently for quite a while now. I've been like, my sleep has been like pretty good for quite a while now, but I still feel like there are more things where it's like, I could actually carve out like way more time in my day. Like I worry sometimes that I'm probably floating by, because like in school, I had this really big problem where I'm a really good reader and I'm naturally like pretty bright. I can assimilate information pretty fast. I should have been like a 4.0 student. I should have like fucking blown away everything, but I was like a 2.9 or 3.1 student, but man, my grade was carried heavily because AP classes are all super weighted heavily. Just because I hate doing homework and shit. And like I look at like what I do online sometimes, and I'm like, oh, you know, like I blow some people away in debates. Like I spent like a couple weeks studying like Ukraine and Russia to get a lot of history here. I could do so much more. I always see that where it's like I could do something. Like, should I really be playing games this much?
Yeah.
Should I really be like, yeah?
I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out what's like, yeah.
Yeah. I guess if there's a cause or a thing that speaks to you, then there's a good reason to do your homework. And if there's not, don't do your homework.
Yeah, but I could always find more, right? Like there are so many more things I could do. Like I wanted to bring out like canvassers to the last runoff election in Georgia, and I did like one call to action, and I got 350 canvassers to show up to a hotel. Yeah, and that was like, we were the largest canvassing operation in the state for that weekend. Like,
so you could be more politically active and mobilize.
Yeah, or socially active, or anything. I could probably, So I just don't know. Sometimes I wonder, because like I have like a gift in terms of what I do, and I've worked hard at it, and then it's like I could do more. Could I be doing so much more? Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Yeah.
One of the things, well, say on that, I don't know, do you want to do more?
I want to feel fulfillment. And generally for most of my life I have, but I kind of like look at the world around me and I kind of like think of things. I watch movies and play video games and I kind of think of like the roles of protagonists and things or whatever. And it's just like, I feel like if I could do more, like, don't I kind of owe it to myself and the world to do that, you know? Like, is it enough to just like sit back and coast on this? I don't know.
I feel that. Yeah. The other thing that I wonder, is that you are working so often, and your work is, there's a lot of it's enjoyable. You're playing video games. The perspective, it's tough to get perspective when you're so working so consistently, even this.
And it's not like, it's hard too, because I don't have like any rubric by which to compare myself, right?
Yeah,
it's
who's,
not like
who's
I'm
the
like,
previous generation of streamers that we're going to look at for, you know.
Or even modern day, like I don't know people that like jump onto so many different platforms and talk to people. Like I don't have anybody to compare myself to like, if I had like other people and I was like the 50th percentile, I'd be like, okay, we need to crank this shit
out. So like
right?
a Voltaire or somebody back who used to like go to the different cafes and talk to people. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I feel that too. There's, I don't think it's simply, in your case, I understand exactly what you're saying, which is there's not a lot of people that have gone on a similar path before. But also I have a strong, there's like not a lot of connection I have to an older generation of people that I could look up to. I have my authors, I have my people that I watch, but there's no one, I don't know, that I can see and interact with and be like, oh, that life is, there's something in that speaks to me. And I think that's true of a lot of people as well. There's not mentors in that sort of way, just given the way that we structure ourselves socially.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I see in your comments that I wonder as well is, have you asked yourself the question of, do I want to restructure how many bridge burnings I have in my circle of, I guess, I don't know if they're friends at this point or if they're work.
Yeah, how do I relate to people is very tough. That's community management and everything is something I've thought about a lot too. I have a pretty unique way that I engage with my community. Pretty sure I have one of the most, I know I have like, for instance, I have the most active subreddit of any individual or entity, like, on all of Reddit. No streamer.
How did that happen?
Because I engage with my community a lot, because I hate cloudy bullshit, networking, whatever. Like a lot of my friends and people have come up through my community, like arguably Hassan, definitely Vosh. Like these are people that came up through my kind of like world that I like platformed, and like that kind of stuff is really fun for me. Like the connection is more genuine. It's more entertaining. Like I love my chatters and I love my community and I participate a lot in it. So, and then I care a lot for it. So these things grow, and I'm very independent. So everything I grow is like me and my community. It's not like, oh, join us, we're part of League of Legends, or join us, we're part of this pre-existing community. All of it is kind of like grown on my own. So as a result, the engagement that I have on everything is really, really, really high.
Yeah.
But then I wonder, like when I engage with people, if my community doesn't like them sometimes, obviously I run into problems there where people feel like they're getting attacked too much. So I don't know if I should moderate my community more strictly. Some people say that I'm too harsh to ban for criticism. I don't think I do. I think I ban people that are more just like not being constructive. But then sometimes I wonder, like, for instance, I ban like pretty quickly when I see non-constructive shit, but I unban very quickly. If somebody's like, please unban me, like, okay, no, if you care to email me for it, you probably care enough to participate, so I'll unban you.
With the people you've talked to, and so you've got, you know, your Hassans, your Voshes, your Mr. Girls, your whatever, there's a list of people that you felt close to at one point and now no longer do. Have you been able to identify either behaviors in yourself, patterns in the people that are coming up, or do you just not care that you're close and that there's a falling out?
It's different for everybody. It's something that's so hard for me. I think that like somewhere deep inside me, I'm like relatively Machiavellian. Like I'm going to consider the pros and cons of like a lot of my social interactions. I'm not going to be self-destructive towards somebody. And I kind of, everybody has this problem. And even I thought I was above it at one point, but I'm not. Nobody's above this. We project our internal mental schema onto other people relentlessly. So there's been a lot of people I'm thinking like, I gave this person their whole career. They have so much to gain by being friends with me.
I wouldn't do.
Yeah, I would never burn it. There's no way. And like they do. And I'm like, oh, really? So yeah, it's been really hard to manage other people's expectations. I mean, like I try to do a better job at like understanding like what is this person here for, what are they going after, and to try to like I'm trying to do like this like give me like Bayesian probabilities on the chance of this person like turning.
So you've got, well, you could crowdsource it.
Yeah, I've got like here's my prior assumptions. I'm going to update based on behaviors I see it. I can kind of have a more realistic expectation, but yeah, it's difficult. But then there's also like I had this conversation earlier with a friend where it's like I am a very forgiving person. I'm pretty non-judgmental. I usually understand why. Like I understand why like Vosh hates me. I understand why Hassan doesn't like me. Like I understand why. So it's like, I'm generally pretty forgiving. Is there like a point where it's like so much forgiveness that one, I look weak because now I'm letting people stab me in the back, and then two, people are more akin to like backstabbing in the future because they don't get away with it, or does it communicate a lot of strength that I can like deal with people like being shitty to me and I can keep moving forward and I don't change the way that I engage with people. I'm still willing to give people chances, and that's really unique on my platform. That's another balancing act that I'm like still trying to figure out. There's a lot.
Outside of optics, are you personally upset at the bridge burnings though?
my whole lived experience, my expectations of people in general are rock bottom. So no, it's very rare that something personally affects me. That's almost
and
never.
I think that's the disconnect that I see in the comments with you, which is they're like, doesn't he see that this is coming? And I don't think he cares.
Yeah, like generally, like, there are a lot of people I keep around that are like super good content. And I know like it's probably going to be explosive in the future. Sometimes not in the ways that I think, but yeah, no, like it's not, very rarely will it personally. Like if my, if like a significant other, like a family member would like shit on me, then I would probably feel bad, but yeah.
Yeah. You're also in a position now, which, I mean, again, if it's not a tremendous bother, where you are probably for your upswing, one of the most available people. You just did 2 podcasts. You came on this one when we didn't have a ton of things and we're still small. Like, you make yourself incredibly available to small content creators. And I think you deserve, I don't know if credit, just recognition at the very least for that. That creates a dynamic where it's easy for people to hop on you, and it's easy to see you as a ticket. And when you're a ticket, well, okay, let me first gain the price of admission, and then let me get a boost on my way out, which is drama. And so there's this, I don't know, that dynamic seems to be very possible and present in
definitely it is possible. I wish everybody says like girls like fuck people for clout. I wish I just had those people. Okay? Fuck me for clout. I'll host your fucking stream. But it's not that. It's always like crazy fucking lunatic people that are, I don't know why I can't just do the normal celeb shit, but no. I understand that there's that thing too. People might see there to be something to gain, but like I'll only associate with somebody for so long if they're like, they have to be interesting, If they're interesting, I'll associate.
And that seems to be when I go, what's going on here? Because you do things that I wouldn't do. I think you just, it's fun. It's interesting. You enjoy the engagement of it, and then it separates, and you don't have the pain that I might feel in that split. So it's like, this makes sense. There's a number of other random topics that I wanted to touch on, but one of them that I thought would come up for today that hasn't is the Supreme Court is going to rule on student loans. And I hadn't heard yet your moral perspective on loan forgiveness. And I'm curious.
I'm generally not in favor of it because people that graduate degrees are the biggest like income winners in society. The average earnings between a bachelor degree in high school is $1 million over a lifetime. It's about $20,000 a year, an average earned difference. Even if you don't get a job in your specialty, you're still often compensated higher for your degree. So like when all of that comes together, like I'm just not too huge on like, oh, student loans, like we got to get them forgiven. Like you can pay your loans back, you're fine. Like as long as you graduate with a degree, you're probably gonna you're getting compensated for the degree.
Yeah.
I know that people have a lot of problems with affordability of stuff nowadays. I don't think that has to do with like student loans or anything. I think that has to do with cost of living in cities is exploding because we have a really hard time building more houses or apartments in this country. But like on a moral level, I mean, like if they forgive him, it's not like I hate it. It's just it's not the worst thing in the world. But like I just don't have a very strong opinion on it. Like
Yeah. My sense is why this particular form of debt over another form of debt? Why not let's do car debt because people had to get cars
or credit card debt for like poor people,
credit card debt because she bought a bunch of Gucci. Like why this one? You made a decision that is not financially feasible, and this particular group is getting selected. And to your point,
are already like
they're
the best
already
of
some of the winners.
Yeah.
If it was like we're going to cancel the debt for immigrants who came here and had to get relocation costs, I'd be more amenable to that, even at the same net price tag. So
that's generally how I feel, but
yeah. And it's also, they call it debt forgiveness. It feels like debt reassignment is a more accurate.
Depending on how you view monetary policy, sure, because it's eventually we have to pay it,
So you talk about a lot of stuff. What do you want to be doing more of or talking about? Where is interesting to you these days?
Data-driven conversations are fun for me. I want to do more data-driven conversations. That formal debate I had with Rollo and Sartain, where I completely and totally dismantled, dismembered,
so
and
it's
annihilated.
Fun for you to like do the research, show
and come
up.
back and to destroy this man's life's work. 5 books obliterated in 48 hours of research. That type of stuff is like very fun for me.
Has that had the impact of what you said, destroying his life's work, or has there been any sort of fallout? Or do you feel like there's a movement from your appearances on Fresh and Fit and on Red Pill Things away from that?
I think in a very broad sense, yes. A lot of it is like kind of crumbling. I don't know if it's just because of me though. It's because of characters like MLD and that Donovan Sharp and Andrew and Tristan Tate moving away from Red Pill stuff. So
I actually think that's one of the big ones is that when I look at Red Pill, gosh, I'm not like you. I'm not trying to call particular people out though.
Sure.
It's a lot of, which I'm sure, like people that I don't think are succeeding in the way that they'd like to purport.
No, most of them are fucking con artists. I don't think these guys are as rich as they say.
Yes.
They pay 35-year-old girls to be on their boats, and they say they've lured 22-year-old college girls into their fucking web. Like
it's a very academic description, and then sometimes a coaching business attached to it.
Yeah. It's multi-level marketing. It's all like Amway, basically.
Yeah.
These guys are all wealthy because they sell coaching programs, not because they've actually done any of the work. Yeah.
And it's often, like you said, not the amount of money. Like I've seen this, and this occurs in every area of internet marketing. But the way that people can technically tell the truth and lie about shit in internet is incredible. So you could be a best-selling author by putting your book on Amazon, making it free for a minute. It goes Amazon bestseller, and then you rightfully claim that you're an Amazon bestseller, but you've never done anything. Yeah. You can claim you've got $1 million business because you made X amount of money in one day, and you multiply that by 365 and say, well, if I had my best day every day, then that would be a $1 million revenue business. Never mind that it's got 90%.
Or you sold 1% to one friend for like $1,000 or something. It's like, well, my valuation. Technically, yeah.
Yes. So this is an 8-figure business, actually. It's 7 figures rev, 8-figure business. But then Andrew and Tristan Tate come out, and I think let's leave aside the criminality issue and the issue of morality, are successful with women, do have a tremendous amount of money, and say, this shit is lame. It's like, I think that's one of the things that contributes, at least when I look at it, I go, oh, this guy is just so much more what other people are pretending to be. Yeah. And I think that's probably why he's attractive, because
and now they're like disowning the Red Pill stuff.
He is the thing, like it or not. And I when I look at him, I go, there's a lot of adolescent energy in the Red Pill stuff. And then Andrew Tate comes up, and it's man energy at that point. I don't know if that resonates at all with you.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Obviously, I have my problems with them, even aside from the criminality. Sure. But yeah, I mean, like on a surface level, it's a very attractive lifestyle, and there's a lot of like hallmarkers of success there: money, girls, huge property, freedom, like physicality. Yeah, of course.
Got it. So you're looking to do more data-driven conversations. Any particular topic, or are you just like going deep? And
I hope politically we get more interesting than just infinite trans discourse all over the country. Republicans need the fight between Desantis or the establishment Republicans and then the MAGA heads, the Trumples, is going to be very interesting.
Do you think there's a fight to be had?
Oh yeah, it's going to be the destruction maybe of the Republican Party. Because there is a group of people willing to follow Trump off the end of the earth. My parents would follow Trump to independent voting, and they've been
saying I don't even know if there's enough establishment Republicans at this point.
Well, Fox News is going to be very geared towards establishment. They let go of Tucker Carlson. They got absolutely destroyed on that Dominion lawsuit.
Yep.
And the Daily Wire has positioned itself arguably as being more pro-establishment than pro-Trump. So you've got the mainstream media and the alternative conservative media that are way more mainstream than Trump. And I don't know where Republican leadership, lawmakers, I don't know how they're going to align themselves. They're probably going to wait to see which way the wind blows. Yep. But Trump is now staring down the barrel of a very real federal indictment that is almost for sure going to get him completely fucked. The New York State one is whatever. The federal one is unbelievable. For
the documents, because I know there's a number of indictments.
Okay. Yeah, the documents, that classified information stuff was unreal. So who knows? That's like, I don't know how that's going to play out, but it's going to be like civil war in the Republican Party trying to figure it out.
I would be surprised if I've watched DeSantis, and he's not the guy. Like,
well, listening to him, watching him go around and shake people's hands. Yeah, I'll give it for Trump. I hate him on almost every topic, but he's really personable.
He could do it. He's really personable. He could do the thing. And I thought it was DeSantis when I heard some of the rhetoric and the way he's positioning himself. I was like, oh, this is savvy strategy. And then I saw him speak. I was like, oh no, he had the look in photos, but this is not the guy.
Hello, guys. Today, I'm going to talk about why I'm the best leader.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Watching him as opposed to Trump's like, yeah, come here, give me a hug. You know.
Yeah. So either jail stops Trump.
Won't stop him. You can run from jail.
That would be fucking wild.
And Republicans should support him too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to vote for him. That's the only way he's getting out.
Yeah. There's an interesting, somebody emailed me this academic paper recently. It was very interesting. Talked about the difference between an echo chamber versus an epistemic bubble. Mm-hmm. That an epistemic bubble, you can argue that people are kind of trapped in an area where they only get like a certain type of news, right? They only see one type of thing. For people in an epistemic bubble, you can give them more information and they'll go, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. That's interesting. I never knew that before. Then you've got people in echo chambers. The difference between an echo chamber and an epistemic bubble is people in an echo chamber, they get all of their information from one source, but they actively invalidate and discredit other voices around them. Mm-hmm. So with an echo chamber, sometimes giving them information from the outside does the opposite, and it reinforces their perspective on things. So
for Trump going to jail.
For Trump, there's going to be some people that are like, this is too much for me. But for his core fans, it's making them stronger and stronger. Like, of course, the deep state is after him. Of course, more indictments are coming. Of course, the FBI said this. Of course, the DOJ said this. It's all making sense, right? For them, every attack on him further solidifies their opinion that there's a group of deep state actors trying to take him down. And he's the only one that can stand between them and the American public.
I don't think I've asked you this or heard you talk about it. Why the cult of personality around him? Because his core and who he has been, which is a rich real estate mogul who was, I think, Democrat most of his life.
He's a New York, yeah.
And the core who is not that. Why the unflinching loyalty?
Populism is a hell of a drug. He was super anti-establishment, was willing to fight the establishment, tell you how much he hated it all, and people followed him. He's just like, yeah.
You think it comes down to policy positions and anti-establishment?
Not policy, anti-establishment. Anti-establishmentism is like that's like a state of mind.
So like
it's
not
a way
exactly,
of being.
but like Alex Jones or Russell Brand to a degree.
Red pill. People talk about the Matrix, the deep state. Yeah, like this kind of idea. Policy positions for Trump never really mattered. And policy positions, I don't even think he was like that conservative compared to other people. But he very much is anti-establishment, and that's what people gravitated towards.
Yeah, because I'm curious, what is the one thing Trump, because there have been times where he'll say something and the audience boos, but it's like
on the establishment position, like for instance, he really wants credit for the vaccine.
Yeah,
because he did warp speed that through,
and he said it's not so bad, and they were so. And versus he can move his base on so much policy. Like, I even get the sense that the border with Mexico is not that important. That was
Probably
that was a random thing that he was able to drum up support around. But there are things where it's like we support Trump, but you can't move from this position. I guess what you're saying is, it's this anti-establishment thing, which the vaccine became representative of.
Yeah, doing what you're not supposed to. So we pull out of the treaty with Iran because they're a horrible, evil power that's going to pursue nukes anyway. But then we get like buddy with North Korea.
Yeah.
And what like policy world does that make sense, right? You know? We want to quit wars in the Middle East and get out of there because we don't deserve to be there. But we're also going to provoke the entire Middle East by moving Jerusalem or the embassy to Jerusalem. Like, how does that make sense? It only makes sense through the lens of like, what are they telling you not to do?
Yes.
Do the opposite or do that. Yeah. And it's like, this is stupid.
Ooh. Well, yeah, that there's like a third of the American populace that has that level of distrust, which is not unearned in some ways. That's
to some extent, yeah. Public policy people, public officials, academic officials, or academic institutions need to do better jobs at communicating what they're doing well and how they're helping people. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was all the questions that I had. Is there anything else that we should talk about? I know you've had a ton of podcasts today.
No, I don't know. What's your like goal with your show? What do you try to do here?
That's a really good question. I'm also in a reflective thing. I admire what you have, which is you show up as you and you get to do you. There's a handful of people, not a lot, like Joe Rogan has that. You have that. And then there's other people who like get to be their party, get to be their thing. I've gotten to be social skills for a long time, which is an aspect of what I'm interested in. But I'm trying to, selfishly, I would love to do all the different parts of me that I like, but I don't know that the audience wants that. So like,
it's so hard.
It's so fucking hard. It takes a long time.
Yeah, it's scary too.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like learning a bad habit. When you break a bad habit, the reason why bad habits are so hard to break is because bad habits are generally really effective up to a point. Sometimes a bad habit is even more effective up to a point. But to break the habit, you have to usually regress.
There's a dip.
Then come back and then build past where you were before.
And so I see this as like, I got to eat lower views. I got to eat less success.
And people complaining, like, why are you doing this shit? Like, can't you just talk about this?
And then every now and then I talk about that and it's, we're here with
You're rewarded. Yeah. Oh my God, we're back. It's been so long. Yeah. I did the same because when I first started streaming, I was a StarCraft streamer. That's what people kind of watched me for. And then I had like, in my mind, in my business strategy, there were like 3 buckets of viewers that I had. The third bucket was if I'm streaming and something really exciting is happening, people are coming in because they want to see the drama. I want to get people from that third bucket into the second bucket. And the second bucket is I am a really good and funny StarCraft 2 player. Anytime I play StarCraft 2, I want you to watch me for that because you want to be serious. So if you're coming in randomly and I'm like playing, I want you to stay for the game, right? That's like getting them into my second bucket. But then second bucket to first bucket is I'm a really cool, entertaining, unique person and I want you to stay for me even when I'm not playing StarCraft. So converting people from bucket 3 to 2 to 1 was always like the goal for everything because I want eventually you to be endeared by me personally so that I have the opportunity and flexibility to branch out to do other things and you kind of follow me on that journey. Yeah.
The numbers lie on YouTube. And you know what I mean? Because you can get 1 million views of one bucket or 1 million views of a different bucket. And you see someone like Moist Critical who every single day can sit in front of his camera, speak extemporaneously, I think for a handful of minutes and draw on those. He does talk about topical issues. It's a lot of bucket 3, but there's a tremendous amount of bucket 2.
It's a lot of bucket 1. Oh yeah. It's people watch Charlie almost no matter what he does. Yes. Yeah, he's a really,
Yes. And so that is, and there's of course drawbacks with that, which is like, well, now you're the product. Like you want to step out of the business. No, they're not here for an ideology or a thing that you can train someone else in. They're here for you. But what I'm trying to do broadly is, One separate channel. I got the D&D set back here, which is
what edition are you playing?
5th. 5th edition.
What a casual loser. Oh my God. How is it having every single class be the exact same?
Oh, you think so?
Wow.
Oh, no.
Good for you. Oh, Battle Master Fighter. Wow, dude. Really unique. Good for you. Human. Oh, you did variant human for the extra feet. Good
variant
job,
for the
dude.
feet, baby.
Oh, wow. So creative. No, I'm just fucking with you. I played 2nd edition and 5th edition. It really depends on what you want to do. 5th edition can be super fun.
Yeah.
2nd edition can be fun if you want to like, I'm very autistic. So like arguing about like,
we
hold
need to
on.
get down to the.
I've got a 30-degree angle to this guy and I'm holding his shit in my right hand. You said that guy was left-handed. I should get a +1 to defense on this. Okay. Earlier, the wind was blowing in a certain direction. Do they really have 300? Yeah.
Autism on demand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to play 2nd edition like that. But 5th edition is fun too. And it's like, I want to role play. I want to get into battles and clean up fun.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend 2 hours opening the 2nd edition book to find out what are the rules when a dragon is attacked from behind by a thief that knows backstab, but doesn't have the feat of like beastery. Or like, yeah. So yeah, 5th edition can be lots of fun too. That's really exciting. I'm excited for you. It's D&D super fun.
No, we've released a handful of episodes and it is. It's like, this is my one bucket, which isn't that large. There's not that many people who have ever wanted to do just what I do. They want primarily social skills, secondarily, my analytical brain, and lastly, any other shit that I'm interested in. So it's way small, but so satisfying. I don't know. There's something about storytelling that I am very drawn to. I feel like there's a way to be incredibly honest. I see what actors get into through acting. You can explore different elements of the human condition and do it. So I enjoy the role-playing aspect of it a lot. So we got that. And then with this, the conversation with Dr. K and stuff around it, I see with the red pill conversation, there's I think there's not a lot of great role models out there.
Yeah.
And I think I could do that. I think I still need to learn a lot about becoming that person and embodying it. But when I looked, we laughed a little, or you laughed a little at Jordan Peterson. I think what he has provided people is such a valuable, fundamental psychological base of like dad.
His psychology was really good.
Yes, here's dad.
I just wish he would never talk about politics or history.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but no, his psychology wasn't even good. It was genuinely pretty insightful. Like there were things that he talked about. I was like, that's a really good point. Or he gave names to a lot of things that I was like he does a whole thing on like integrating your shadow, which was something that took me a long time.
His Jungian stuff is
there's a lot of good stuff there. I just wish he would fucking. I don't need to hear him. I don't need his opinions on Elliot Page. Okay?
Yeah, where I agree is there was that moment in his arc where there was the up yours woke moralists, the Elliot Page, and the Sports Illustrated Twitter, and I was like, I've lost
him posting
connection.
like 30 Joker pictures. Like, bro, are you okay?
So generally, him on Twitter, I'm not a big fan of, but I've seen his podcast recently. I feel like he's come back to areas that I like him, and the way that he explored politics, I find him oftentimes good faith and sincere in his approach to the world, though of course he's got, I think, different assumptions at the base than I might. But the power of what he did was, I think he spoke to human fundamentals and really did provide a lot of people, not necessarily all in my audience, but people that were really struggling with the basics that meant so much to them. And that I wonder if I could do something like that, but less. I wouldn't want to do it. No shade. That was a little too basic for me. Like stand up straight with your shoulders back stuff. I would want to talk like you did and like he does sometimes about the shadow, about the emotional intelligence thing that we're talking about what are the appropriate elements of femininity to incorporate as a man. And I haven't made it that yet. I'm kind of all over the place, but I think that's the direction that I might be headed.
It's so hard because a lot of that, especially social skills and everything, like at one point in time, like I was pretty autistic in terms of trying to figure out like what do people like, what don't people like, because so much of my stuff is so off the norm. But now like so much of it is like very natural to me. It gets very hard sometimes to describe like what is exactly going on here. Like why did you feel like, people ask me, why did you feel like it was appropriate to make that really edgy joke to that woman? And why does she like that particular joke? And it's like, fuck, I don't know. Like we talked about this. I just had a feeling that this would probably be like a good, but like why exactly? I don't know. Like, why did I find that it was appropriate to like joke about her boobs in this particular moment when normally like I would never, like, why would I tell like some girls where it's like, are you sure you want to stay in a hotel with me? There's like a 75% chance to streamer, I might rape you, right? Why would I make some of these jokes and sometimes not completely other times? And at some point it's like really hard. It's like, I don't know. Like I spent so many time talking to people that I have like a very good intuitive sense now of like what's okay and what's not okay. And and it's hard. Those upper level, I understand like, and again, no shade and not even any shade. When I coached StarCraft 2, because I gave lessons for a while, if you want to be a good coach in anything, then the beginning is always, always, always in every discipline going to be the fundamentals. Because if you don't have the fundamentals, you don't deserve to work on anything else, and you won't be able to work on anything else. So I understand the whole like stand up straight, like have good posture. It changes the way you carry yourself through the world. Because if you can't do that, there's no hope for you in terms of like, one of the saddest things I saw in that big Fresh and Fit episode was like, Myron asked the audience, how many of you guys are like single? Like 90% of the audience raised their hand. And then he asked like, how many of you guys want to have like multiple girlfriends? And like 80% of the audience raised their hand. And I'm like, guys, holy shit.
Well, you know, start with honesty about what you want. If
but I'm like, damn,
we gotta land in the stars or something.
We got a lot of work here. Okay, let's get one girlfriend first. You know, it's like, geez, but yeah. It's fun to do. I hope it would be interesting to see you do that, because working at like actually putting pen to paper and figuring out exactly how some of these more abstract things work, because there's so much variability and like everything, like integrating your shadow.
Yes.
Like in some ways you can be very aggressive and offensive, but in other ways you can incorporate that in really good ways. In some ways you can be like very pushy and creepy, and you don't want to incorporate any of that. You know, it's very hard. Yeah.
And so this is, I think, like any discipline, is the beginning you can write a book about. It's so easy. Like the basics of StarCraft 2 are the same for everybody. I don't care who you are, operate on this. As you get to higher levels of any discipline, what you were just talking about with women, what's the vibe? You know, like there's this intuitive sense of guidance that I can no longer give prescriptive statements that you can follow past a certain point, because the diminishing returns just get too crappy.
Yeah. And it becomes so precise.
Yes.
Like
and the person who needs that precision is not ready for that level of advice. This I experienced in dating is like, when should I kiss a girl? I can give you broad advice, but at the point where I have to get so precise and you require that, is like, look, we got to go back to a different fundamental of,
or it's
can
like,
you feel the situation?
Yeah.
And how do I describe? I don't know.
Yeah. Or you've got like a particular, like, let's watch a whole video and I can give you exact analysis. One of the really interesting things about like, for music, if you're ever like in a master class, if somebody comes up, the better they play, you've got so much more critique for them. If a beginner player comes up and they go, then you're like, okay, that was a good try. Practice more. Remember, breath support is really important. Slow the tempo down if you can't play at that level, and you'll do great, right? But if a really advanced player comes up, you're like, okay, measure 12. Like, look at the way that you tie these two notes together. There's so much more you can do. Your vibrato here can be so much, like, you can start to get into so much more precise stuff, but it's so much more personalized. And then, like you said, like for a low level player, like, you don't worry about this critique. Like, just get the fundamentals down first, and
that scales. Low level scales so much easier.
Well. Yeah.
And the upper levels, we need to work one-on-one.
More precise.
For you to get any better,
Yeah.
this is one-on-one or small group at best.
Yeah.
And so I haven't sorted that out, but I know that I am more drawn. I still think I could make content on it, but you mentioned the shadow. That's advanced stuff for a lot of people. All the things that you are sure you are not. There's value to exploring them, integrating that, and archetypal work. All kinds of stuff through therapy and psychedelics that has come. I'd love to do that, and I think the other challenge is, once you get this, the first name of my business was Kick-Ass Academy, and people thought it was a dojo for like fighting. So we had to change it, and when we changed it, nothing else changed in the business except the name Charisma on Command, and instantly views to the website tripled.
Sure.
And so there's this, how do you describe it such that it is understandable when you're talking about a new thing? And 10 years ago, the idea of charisma, which has now become Riz, it was this weird Greek word that people really didn't use. And I can't take credit for Riz, but like, we made it a thing in our niche on YouTube. And so there's also this marketing question of, how do you describe what you are in a way that is descriptive and approachable to someone who has never seen it, such that they can, he does that. I don't know. He does mature masculine, or he does, I don't know. So I'm thinking about that as well, because it's there's a whole suite of things that I would love to.
Yeah, that's really difficult too. Like in a lot of ways, because I've thought about similar stuff, in that, like, in some ways, like, I want to be a role model for like thought processes, but I do a lot of stuff off the norm. I don't want to be a role model in other ways, right? Like open relationship style. I don't know if everybody should do that. I don't want to role model that for everybody. In terms of like working like 14 hours a day, I don't think that's probably healthy for most people. I'm really lucky that I can do what I love, but I don't want to role model that for people. In terms of like the engagement style that I have with people, very aggressive. I love crazy people, especially crazy girls. I like the fighting. I like the conflict. I don't want to role model that for people, right? So it's hard that in one sense, like, I'd like to be more of a role model for people, because I do think I'm very happy. I've been happy.
That's very insightful of you, by the way. I think, well, sorry to interrupt, but continue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I do want to be a role model for people, but like, there's so many traits about me that I don't think most people should copy. So I don't want to be a role model in some ways as well, and that's difficult to balance. Yeah,
they work for you in the particular way that you are, versus the more broadly universalizable thing that would be good for a lot of people is a different approach to their information diet and how they construct their worldview. Yeah, I think that's very true. And when people go, and I sort of even did today, how should people talk to girls? How should people interact? You're like, look, I got my way of doing it, but I'm not trying to write the book on this particular thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, cool, man. Anything else we want to hit?
No, I just want to reiterate how much I'm disappointed in you that you didn't tell me that Dr. K was here earlier. I just had an awesome talk with him like a month ago, and he's really cool. And fuck you.
I'm sad. I hope that there's a meetup he had mentioned. I don't want to name drop, but he's like, I talked to these other streamers who I'm sure you know. And we had a conversation at VidCon that something like this needs to happen. And oftentimes with streamers, there's this, you need to make content. And there was also a collective understanding, like, let's turn off the cameras. Like, let's talk about making something. And I was like, dude, I'd fucking love that. I dig that because he's in the mental health space, and I feel that's one angle of what I'm curious about. So
I'd say we're allowed to be involved with that too. If he ever needs more people, if you guys are looking for people.
Oh, dude, 100%.
I remember I went back to my, I wanted to be, like do some type of like mentorship for like people that are like, especially young men. I went back to my high school and I tried to volunteer there, and they didn't want anything to do with me. So I was like, oh, fuck me. So yeah, any style of like thing like that would be super fun to be involved with in some ways.
I think that'd be so cool because there's such a thrust of, you can call them, a lot of them are entrepreneurs, and I understand they're trying to make their first buck and trying to, I don't change. I sell things, who are looking to get customers to give them money so that they can live their life. And I think that you're in that position. I'm in a position where I can give without expectation of receiving anything other than the joy of giving. And, Dr. K is, I think there's a number of people that it could be really cool. And it could be just a different type of influence than is so popular right now. So I'll definitely let you know.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me, man.